Our next goal is to find the length of missing sides in right-angled triangles. You've probably seen this formula before. It's called the Pythagorean theorem. You can only use it on right-angled triangles, and you know that this is a right-angled triangle because of this little symbol right here. That shows us that that's a 90-degree angle. It's important that we learn which side is the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the side that's across from the right angle. So this one, and we usually use the C for this. This is the hypotenuse. And I have to take my time to spell that right. That's the hypotenuse. We call these other two sides the legs. All right, so it doesn't matter which one of these is A or B, just these are the legs, but the hypotenuse is always the C. And this is our formula. We take the A squared, so that means A times A, or you can use a little button on your calculator that looks like this. I have one I call it my X squared button. And I can just put in a number and hit that button, and I get the number squared. So the formula, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You're going to want that in your notes, and you're going to want two examples. One example is our first one, is how we find the hypotenuse. So first of all, I look at my triangle and I say, is it a right angled triangle? And oh, yep, there it is because of that. And I know that this is my hypotenuse over here. I'm just going to short form that. That's my hypotenuse. So that means I can use my Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And you should model your solutions like me. Then I take my side. So this is my A and this is my B, or it could be vice versa. It doesn't matter. 6 squared plus 8 squared is equal to C squared. And then in my calculator, I'm going to figure out 6 squared, and I'm going to figure out 8 squared equals C squared. Now I can add those together, and that is equal to 100. Now that equals C squared. We don't want C squared. We just want C. So what we have to do to undo the squared is we have to do the square root. So we're going to do the square root of 100. And then in your calculator, you will have to find your square root button and figure out how to use that in your calculator. The square root of 100 is 10. And I didn't put any units on this, so let's just pretend that these are meters. So this would be 10 meters. Also remember to check your answer. The hypotenuse is always the longest side. So if this answer doesn't come out to be longer than the other two, you know there's something wrong. It also has to be reasonable. If this answer came out to be 25, that wouldn't be reasonable if my two arms of my triangle were 6 and 8. It has to be kind of close within those numbers. So you can estimate, oh yeah, my answer makes sense or my answer doesn't make sense. Now I have a rectangle and I know the length and the width of the rectangle, and I want to find the diagonal, which is right there. So because it's a rectangle, we know that this is a right angle. And then that says if it's a right angle, I can use my Pythagorean theorem. These guys here are the legs, and because this is across from the right angle, this is my hypotenuse. So my formula, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Now I'm going to substitute in my sides, so 12 squared plus 15 squared is equal to C squared. 12 squared is 144. 15 squared is 225, and that equals C squared. Now, I have to add 144 and 225, and I get 369 is equal to c squared. And then remember, we have to, at this point, we have to do the square root of that. We get c equals, now my calculator, the square root of 369 is 19.209. So I'm just going to round that to 19.2 centimeters. So it's the longest side of my triangle, so that's right. And 15, 12, and 19 sounds like that would be a reasonable triangle. So my answer is reasonable. Here we have another triangle. And first of all, I look and I say, well, is it a right angle? Yep, it's a right angle. And then this is my hypotenuse. So this one's different because now I know the hypotenuse. But I know I can still use my Pythagorean theorem. So that's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So my c this time is a 12 squared. And my a, b, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to say that this is a and this is b. So my a I don't know. So I'm just going to leave it with the variable x squared, plus b is 7 squared. Well, now we're going to figure out what we can. We can't do the x squared. 7 squared is 49, and 12 squared is 144. Well, I want to figure out what do I add to 49 to get 144. And I can figure that out by subtracting 49 from 144. And that gives me 144 minus 49 gives me 95. And again, at this point, we have to do the square root. And that gives me x equals, we're going to round that off to, it says 9.746. So I'm just going to round that to 9.7. I didn't put any units on this, so let's just pretend those are meters. 9.7 meters. And still, I checked to see, is my hypotenuse still the longest side? Yep, hypotenuse is 12. 9.7 is in the range that goes with these other sides. So this is an example that you should write down for how to find one of the legs. And you'll follow the same steps that I did. And if you follow my steps and you do the same thing, you'll be fine. You should also go back in your notes and put the example that I made with the one where you're finding the hypotenuse. So you have both examples to go back to look at how to find the hypotenuse and how to find a side that's not the hypotenuse. With this question here, I want to find the perimeter of this trapezoid. And problem is, I don't know this side right here. But I do have enough information that I can figure that out. I didn't put on here, but these guys here are right angles. And if you know that this side here is 10 and this side is 7, the difference between them is 3. So I know that this little piece right here is 3. And because this is a rectangle, this little piece right here is 4. So this, I'm just going to try and highlight that, this is a right angle triangle. I'm just going to pull it over here so we can look at it. And my pictures are never drawn to scale, so just know that sometimes it may not look like it's the right measurement, but it's just because my pictures aren't drawn to scale. This is 4, this is 3, and I need to figure out this side. Well, it's across from the right angle, so this is my hypotenuse. So I have to do my a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared. That's 9 plus 16. That's 25. And then I have to remember to square root, and I get c is equal to 5. So now I know that this side here is 5, and then to find my perimeter, I can just add up all the outside parts. So I have 4 plus 10. I don't need that 3 because 10 is this whole distance. Plus 5 plus 7. That gets me all the way around. That is 26, I think. I should check that. I think 14 plus 12. Yep, 26 centimeters.